We live in a world that is full of wonders, both natural and man-made. From Neom City to the Great Barrier Reef, there are so many beautiful places on Earth you can visit. But then there are those with no entry signs. Well, we're not talking about North Sentinel Island where outsiders are like a disease, or Snake Island where the golden lancehead viper can melt your flesh. We are talking about the islands that have been off-limits for a plethora of reasons. Safety, scientific inquiry, government secrecy, and wildlife, whatever you want to call it. No one is allowed to enter these places, except specials. So, grab your imaginary map and get ready for an adventure to explore the 15 forbidden islands that will make you wish you never knew about them. Let's start off with number 15. Heard Island, Australia. If Earth had a witness protection program for islands, Heard Island would be in it. Sitting more than 4,000 kilometers southwest of Australia, this place is so remote that even Google Maps has probably given up on updating its street view. And good luck getting there. Assuming you're brave enough to endure a week of being tossed around in some of the world's most unforgiving seas, you'll likely arrive only to find absolutely nothing. Most of the year, the island is hidden under thick clouds like it's actively avoiding visitors. But the real gatekeeper here isn't the weather. It's Big Ben, the island's very own fiery, tantrum-throwing volcano. It regularly spits lava while enormous glaciers break apart and tumble down its slopes, as if the island itself is trying to shake off anyone foolish enough to approach. And then the wind. Heard Island doesn't do gentle breezes. Recorded gusts have hit 200 kilometers per hour. Unless you're a seal or penguin or maybe a government-approved scientist, you're not setting foot here. The island is a protected World Heritage Site. Number 14. Runit Island, Marshall Islands. There's forbidden, and then there's, you might actually glow in the dark if you go there, forbidden. Welcome to Runit Island, where the United States conducted 67 nuclear bomb tests between 1946 and 1958, and then decided the best way to clean up the mess was to, well, throw a concrete lid on it and hope for the best. The brilliant idea? Gather 85,000 cubic meters of radioactive soil and debris, dump it into a massive crater known as Cactus Crater, slap a concrete dome on top, and call it a day. The problem? They didn't bother lining the bottom. So, for decades, radiation has been casually seeping into the Pacific Ocean, making this less of a cleanup job and more of a delayed disaster. Scientists have been nervously monitoring the dome's condition, and with rising sea levels creeping closer, let's just say this isn't the kind of island getaway anyone wants. The only people who ever set foot here are government scientists in full hazmat suits, who probably spend their entire visit questioning their career choices. Number 13. North Brother Island, United States. New York City never sleeps, but North Brother Island? It's been in a coma for decades. Sitting in the East River between Rikers Island and the Bronx, this forgotten patch of land has seen more tragedy than a season finale of a prestige drama series. Originally home to Riverside Hospital, this was where New York sent people with tuberculosis, yellow fever, smallpox, and typhus to live out their final days. And just when things couldn't get darker, the General Slocum steamship caught fire nearby in 1905, killing over 1,000 people, many of whom washed up on North Brother Island's shores. After World War II, the hospital briefly served as housing for returning veterans, then became a rehab center for drug addicts in the 50s. It was shut down in 1963 due to, surprise, corruption and mismanagement. Since then, nature has taken over, with vines strangling old hospital buildings and trees punching through cracked walls. The only residents now? Black-crowned night herons, an endangered bird species that decided this creepy, abandoned island was the perfect place to raise their kids. Despite its prime real estate status, North Brother Island is strictly off-limits. The New York City Department of Parks and Recreation keeps it locked down to protect the birds, and probably to stop explorers from getting any ideas. Number 12. Diego Garcia. Diego Garcia isn't just restricted, it's practically erased from public consciousness. Officially, it's a joint UK-US military base in the middle of the Indian Ocean, but it's the kind of place where asking too many questions gets you vague answers and a change of topic. Once home to the Chagosian people, the entire population was forcibly removed in the 1960s to make way for military operations. Well, that was totally inhuman. What do you say? Since then, Diego Garcia has been a no-go zone for anyone except authorized military personnel, defense contractors, and the occasional high-clearance government official. What exactly happens here? Well, that's completely classified. Now, rumors range from black site prisons to experimental technology testing. But what's undeniable is the massive surveillance presence and restricted airspace. Civilians can't visit, yachts can't stop, and even aircraft passing nearby get monitored. If you're not on the need-to-know list, Diego Garcia isn't just off-limits. It might as well not exist. Number 11. Fort Carroll Island. Fort Carroll was supposed to be Baltimore's first line of defense, but it ended up being nothing more than a forgotten, crumbling fortress sitting abandoned in the Patapsco River. Built in the mid-1800s, the island fortress was meant to protect against naval attacks that never came. By the time military technology advanced, Fort Carroll was obsolete before it ever saw real action. During World War II, the Army used it as a firing range, but even that didn't last. Eventually, the government sold it to a private owner in 1958, and since then, absolutely nothing has been done with it. Over the years, developers have floated ideas, a casino, a hotel, even a prison, but the island remains abandoned. Today, it's just a massive decaying structure overtaken by nature, with birds nesting in the ruins and urban explorers risking fines and tetanus just to get a glimpse inside. A once promising stronghold? More like a giant concrete ghost ship. Number 10. Île Saint-Paul. If you're looking for a place where nature completely ignores human existence, Île Saint-Paul is it. It's what you have been looking for. Sitting in the middle of the Indian Ocean, this tiny 6-square-kilometer volcanic island is so remote that it rarely gets visitors, human or otherwise. Its most striking feature? A half-sunken volcanic crater that looks like a lost world from a sci-fi movie. But don't expect to stroll in easily. Rough seas, strong currents, and sheer isolation make landing here nearly impossible. Even when ships do make it, there's nowhere safe to dock. Aside from seabirds, seals, and a few French scientists who drop in occasionally for research, the island remains untouched. In 1930, a group of shipwrecked survivors were stranded here for months, battling the elements before they were finally rescued. The place is stunning, sure, but it's also a reminder that some islands just don't want human company. Number 9. Poison Gas Island. Once so classified that it was removed from maps, Okunoshima, better known as Poison Gas Island, was one of Japan's darkest secrets. During World War II, the island was a chemical weapons facility, producing mustard gas and other deadly toxins despite international bans. The workers? They had no idea what they were handling, and many suffered severe illnesses from exposure. When the war ended, Japan erased the facility from existence, destroying records and burying evidence. The island was left abandoned until, oddly enough, thousands of rabbits took over. No one's sure exactly how the rabbits got there. Some say they were test subjects freed after the war, while others believe they were introduced later as a tourist attraction. Either way, Okunoshima is now famous for its fluffy, adorable bunnies hopping around the ruins of a once deadly war lab. A place with a tragic past and an oddly wholesome present, only in Japan. Number 8. Isla de las Muñecas. This island isn't just eerie, It's the kind of place that would make even horror movie directors say, too much. Nestled in the Xochimilco canals of Mexico, this island is covered, and I mean covered, in hundreds of decaying, disfigured dolls hanging from trees. The story goes that a man named Don Julian Santana moved here alone decades ago. Shortly after, he found a drowned girl in the water. Disturbed by her death, he started hanging dolls in the trees as a tribute. But his obsession grew, and soon the island became a twisted graveyard of broken, soulless dolls. What makes it even more unsettling? Don Julian himself was later found dead in the same spot where the girl had drowned. Some say it was a tragic coincidence, while others believe the island had claimed him, just like it did the little girl. Today, visitors are welcome, but most don't stay too long. The eerie silence, the hollow-eyed dolls. Who the hell does someone want to stay there? Number 7. Farallon Islands. Just 30 miles off San Francisco, the Farallon Islands sit in isolation, untouched by human settlements. You can't step foot here, but you can watch from a boat or through a webcam. Because let's be honest, the residents don't want you there anyway. Home to the largest seabird colony in the lower 48 states, the islands are locked down for conservation. If you could land, you'd be dodging thousands of squawking murreys, cormorants, and puffins, not to mention elephant seals and sea lions that fight for real estate on the jagged cliffs. But it's not just birds and blubbery beasts that rule the place. These waters are prime hunting grounds for great white sharks, which turn the area into a full-on feeding frenzy every fall. Only a small team of scientists is allowed access, studying shark behavior, seabird migrations, and the ecosystem's delicate balance. The rest of us? Best to admire from a safe distance. Number 6. Fort Carroll. Built in the mid-1800s to defend Baltimore from naval attacks, Fort Carroll was obsolete before it ever saw combat. By 1921, the military gave up on it, and in 1958, a lawyer bought it for $10,000 with big dreams of turning it into a casino, hotel, or even a prison. Decades later, it's still nothing but a decaying mass of stone, rust, and overgrown vegetation, sitting abandoned in the Patapsco River. Today, it's an accidental bird sanctuary, completely overrun with seagulls and other nesting birds. The structure itself is falling apart, walls crumbling, floors collapsing, and nature reclaiming whatever it can. While it's off limits to visitors, some urban explorers have tried sneaking in by kayak, dodging heavy ship traffic and the Coast Guard. For those who don't want a trespassing charge, virtual tours and old military records are the only ways to see inside. The once promising fortress is now just another ghost of history, floating quietly in Baltimore's waters. Number 5. Minami Torishima. A tiny coral atoll over 1,800 kilometers southeast of Tokyo, Minami Torishima is Japan's easternmost territory. But unless you work for the Japan Meteorological Agency or the Japan Self-Defense Force, you won't be setting foot here. This military-controlled weather station plays a crucial role in tracking typhoons, ocean currents, and climate patterns, making it one of Japan's most strategic locations in the Pacific. There are no hotels, no tourist sites, and no easy way to get there. The only runway belongs to Japan's Air Force, and boats aren't exactly welcome either. Some documentary crews and researchers have been granted access over the years, but for everyone else, this place might as well be off the map. If you want to see it, you'll have to settle for satellite images and history books, because Japan isn't opening the gates. Number 4. Bouvet Island. If solitude had a capital, it would be Bouvet Island. This frozen rock in the South Atlantic is over 1,600 miles from the nearest land, making it the most isolated island on the planet. No one lives here, not because they don't want to, but because nature simply won't allow it. With its perpetual ice cover, brutal winds, and no real landing spots, it's about as welcoming as a locked door in a snowstorm. Despite the harsh conditions, seals, seabirds, and penguins thrive on Bouvet, thanks to its untouched ecosystem. The Norwegian government has designated it a nature reserve, allowing only scientists to visit for research. For explorers, Bouvet's icy mystery is both a challenge and a warning. Some places aren't meant to be conquered. Number 3. Gruinard Island. At first glance, Gruinard Island looks like a peaceful slice of Scottish coastline, but beneath its soil lies a terrifying past. During World War II, British scientists used the island as a testing ground for anthrax-based biological weapons. The results were catastrophic. The soil became so contaminated that the island was declared uninhabitable for decades. In the 1980s, the government attempted a cleanup by dousing the land in formaldehyde, and by 1990, Gruinard was declared safe. Still, people aren't exactly lining up to visit. Traces of anthrax spores could still be buried deep within the soil, making it a place best left undisturbed. Gruinard serves as a haunting reminder of the dangers of biological warfare, a place where a single experiment left scars lasting generations. Weapons may win wars, but they leave behind battlefields that never fully heal. Number 2. Surtsey. When Surtsey erupted from the ocean in 1963, it was like watching the Earth create land in real time. This volcanic island has since become one of the most fascinating natural laboratories on the planet. Scientists have been studying it from day one, watching how life slowly takes hold in a once barren landscape. What makes Surtsey unique is its strict protection. No tourists, no settlements, no outside interference. Only a handful of scientists are allowed to visit, ensuring that whatever happens here is completely natural. Over time, plants, birds, and insects have colonized the island, making it a perfect case study for how ecosystems develop from scratch. Surtsey isn't just a chunk of lava in the ocean. It's proof of how life finds a way, even in the harshest conditions. Earth builds, Earth destroys, and sometimes it lets us watch. Number 1. Niihau. Niihau isn't abandoned, it's just off-limits. This privately owned Hawaiian island has been controlled by the Robinson family since 1864, and unless you're personally invited, you're not getting in. With no paved roads, no internet, and no modern conveniences, it's a place where Hawaiian traditions remain untouched by time. Only about 170 people live here, sustaining themselves through fishing, hunting, and farming. Tourism is strictly forbidden, with even fishermen barred from stepping onto its shores. Occasionally, helicopter tours give a glimpse of its pristine beaches, but beyond that, Niihau remains a mystery to outsiders. While some call it a cultural sanctuary, others see it as a controversial time capsule, where modern laws and rights take a back seat to strict traditions. Either way, Niihau stands as a living reminder of Hawaii before commercialization, untouched, undisturbed, and almost entirely unseen. If you enjoyed this video, please like, share, and subscribe. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you soon.